This episode of Wheat Pete's Word is brought to you by Syngenta. It's that time of year where getting the crop in and harvesting the highest quality and yield possible are top of mind. Reglone Ion is a true canola and pulse desiccant proven to make harvest more efficient and profitable. Reglone Ion provides fast, complete dry down of your crop, allowing you to take control of your harvest. Visit syngenta.ca to learn more.
Good day, and welcome to Wheat Pete's Word here on Real Agriculture for Wednesday, September the 3rd. Yes, already September. On this episode of The Word, what? I'm no longer number one? Are you kidding me? Then we've got a few cool updates. Not too many, Paul, just for you. And then we've got agronomy, weed control, wheat seeding, cover crops, and I probably won't get to it, but corn standability, we do have to watch that one as well. Let's go! And before I begin, I just want to quote Mike Myers, a CBC interview that I heard him on, and such a great quote talking about Canadians. And he said that as Canadians, we have to speak your truth with kindness. And I just go, wow, I like to speak the truth. I try hard to speak the truth, but when other people are not speaking the truth, it is so hard not to go, 100%. You have to speak your truth with kindness. Kudos to Dean. Dean was at a county council meeting, and they were talking about banning the spraying of glyphosate. There was a motion. Dean spoke up with science, and I think with kindness, because that's the kind of guy Dean is, and the motion was defeated. It is truly speak your truth with kindness, but keep promoting good science. I think that's ever so important. All right, Bill. Oh, Bill, you just, I don't know. Bill sent me an email, and the title of the email was, "You have been beaten." And in Bill's defense, he went on to say, Pete, most of the time I listen to The Word, and it's the most informative podcast I listen to all week. And then he sent me a link for another podcast that he says, I think this guy might beat you. He's not an agronomist. It's about a different topic. But yes, it was an excellent podcast, Bill. So thanks for that. But I'm no longer number one. Dang. And then just 5 minutes after Bill sent that email, I got an email from Jason from Idaho, and with just basically telling me that I reignited, Wheat Pete's Word, reignited his passion for agriculture. He's going back into agriculture. He's excited about doing that. He's always been passionate about agriculture and was getting pushed out due to different things that are happening in Idaho and in the U.S. So, I mean, gosh, if I can keep people in agriculture, that is just amazing. So Jason, thank you so much for that email. And Bill, thanks for that email as well, even though I've been beaten. Things can't be too bad. Phil Shaw actually tweeting out, I think you all know Phil, he's a great marketing analyst, said, "Hey Pete, enjoyed the last podcast. By the way, I think here in Essex, Kent, we are going to plant big wheat acres." And I'm going, wow, Phil. Phil's a guy who never wants to plant wheat because he's an agricultural economist. And most of the time, if you only look at 1 year results, man, it does not pay to grow wheat. It's just it's the runt pig or the whatever way you want to say that. No. Sounds like Phil is excited about big wheat acres going in the ground in the deep southwest. I'm not sure why that is, Phil, but I love it. Keep doing it. Paul says, "Peter, do the weather last. Oh my gosh, you spend too long on the weather. You get too many messages. You don't answer them all." Okay, Paul, real quick on the weather, just two things. First, Eric saying that this is the first time in his life, and Eric, if you know Eric Kaiser, super farmer down near Lake Ontario, the first time in his farming career that he got over 1,000 crop heat units in August. Man, Eric, I didn't even think it was hardly possible to get over 1,000 heat units in a month. I'm interested to see what Nature Nut Nick's numbers say, but yeah, that's huge. That just tells you how warm August was, both daytime and nighttime temperatures. It takes both to get big crop heat units. And another caller, so it's now September the 3rd, and it was a week ago last Monday, whatever day that was in August, when it went cold. And the caller says, Peter, 7th consecutive night of being under 9 degrees Celsius, the corn crop, it must have stalled because you say 9 Celsius at night, we lose a day. Is this corn crop ever going to mature? And by the way, this grower said in 2017, they had corn that shut down entirely prematurely because it stayed too cold for too long. But he couldn't remember the temperatures. So I will say that, yes, the 9 degrees Celsius ties Tolner work, and I think it's real. But I come back to wheat and some really great work that Jamie Larson did when he was doing, I think, his PhD thesis. Jamie is now the edible bean breeder and researcher at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in Harrow. We're lucky to have him there. But what he found with winter wheat is that when the temperatures dropped, or a big change in the weather, that after about 3 days, the winter wheat would acclimatize to those temperatures and be able to handle those temperatures much better. And I really wonder, because we've had other years with a longer spell of 9 Celsius at night or less, and the corn didn't stall or didn't stop maturing. And I really wonder if after 3 days, because Tiza's work, it was warm temperatures, 1 cold night, see what happens. It wasn't warm temperatures, 5 cold nights, see what happens every day. I wonder if the corn doesn't acclimatize to that. I will say, though, goes below 4 Celsius at night, and I think this caller, that's what must have happened in 2017, because we know if it's warm, and the temperature drops dramatically, and you get those 3 cold nights under 4 Celsius, that corn can shut down. I don't think it's going to do that at 9 Celsius. All right, Andres, thank you so much for the awesome picture. We're going to include it in the post. Just a beautiful wheat field of Andres in South Africa. And Andres has reached out with a high yield fertility question before from me. And anyway, I just love it when people send me those pictures from other jurisdictions about what's happening in the crops. And that is one great looking wheat field, Andres. So thank you for that. All right, well, Brett saying, Peter, winter barley, all finished, all drilled in September the 2nd. And I just go, man, if there's one thing this word has done, is we have really pushed the envelope on getting things in a timely fashion. And that's okay for Brett, because in his area, his optimum planting date for winter wheat is probably the 15th of September. I'd have to look, but it's in that game. We want winter barley 10 days earlier. So you're early, Brett, but the rain's coming September the 2nd. I'm looking for big things out of that crop, and lots and lots of canola going in. Some really great canola tips that I'm going to have to remember for next year, because it's too late for this year. But Sean Schill, at the end of the day, as much as Wheat Pete hates tillage, if you are going to be a winter canola grower and really make it work well, it's like the winter wheat comes off and you do tillage. You do whatever tillage you need to do, and you get it a fine, firm seed bed. You roll it, and then you walk away from it for a week or 10 days. And if the volunteer wheat comes up, you just spray it out. And then the right date, wherever, and a little bit depends on your geography, but right around September the 1st, you just go drill that winter canola in. Many growers saying that, wow, that system works. We get the right canola seed depth, and there is soil moisture there. I think that's really great advice. Okay, I want to move on into weed control. First up, Jeff from Quebec saying, okay, Pete, I've got grass coming up in my Roundup Ready soys. I think they're because they're in 30-inch rows. Can I go out there now and spray them with glyphosate and kill that grass so it doesn't go to seed? So, Jeff, not a chance. You're at R6. If you spray it with glyphosate now, can you kill the weeds? Yes, but the chances of getting glyphosate in the soybean, we're way off label. And off label or not, we cannot, I repeat, we cannot have glyphosate residues in the crop Full stop. No spraying at this point. Wait until it's physiologically mature. It'll be a week, 10 days, something like that. As soon as it's physiologically mature and we're not getting translocation, spray that grass out with glyphosate and stop as much seed set as possible. But at the end of the day, you just can't do it now. Gary with fleabane in Roundup Ready soybeans saying, Pete, can I kill the fleabane now? So, Gary, same deal. We're off-label, but the difference here is that the fleabane, almost guaranteed, has already gone to seed. In Jeff's case, we're trying to prevent the grass from setting seed. We're assuming that it hasn't yet. It's a possibility. It could be late, although it's probably getting close. But regardless, the fleabane, man, if you look at the seed heads on the fleabane plant, and Mike Cobra always says, tan pants. If you look at the seeds and they've got these two little tan-colored appendages coming out of them, that is mature seed, guaranteed. Almost 100% you have mature seed there. So it's too late even if you did kill the fleabane because the damage is done. It's not a perennial. It's going to set or grow new plants from that seed that's already developed. So Gary's going to winter wheat. The easy answer is, Gary, we have to stop it. So we're going to get out there in the winter wheat crop and we're going to spray a herbicide once the wheat comes up. We're going to give as much fleabane a chance to germinate and grow as we can. With most products, we'd like to see that wheat at the 3-leaf stage, but we're going to spray. There's a number, Pixaro, Infinity FX. There's lots of things that will take that fleabane out of the winter wheat once it emerges. That's the strategy at this point. Frank in Northern Ontario is saying, Pete, we harvested the canola. We're going into winter wheat. We've got horsetail. And of course, you cut canola fairly high. So that horsetail you couldn't see under the canola stubble, now you can see it. And so Frank is saying, can I spray it with MCPA and take out that horsetail? Frank, the reality is that horsetail, it survives by nutlets in the soil. The same as nut sedge. It puts nutlets in the soil. That horsetail already has put the nutlets in the soil. If you spray it out now, then number one, you're off-label because MCPA is not registered pre-emerge. It probably is okay if you use the ester formulation, but regardless, you don't win because the nutlets are already in the soil. And Mike Cobra says that horsetail is one of the most sensitive species to frost. So your first frost, and I think you had a frost up in Northern Ontario in late August. It was only that the canola was protecting that horsetail that it didn't already getting taken out. The value of spraying the horsetail out at this point is just a non-starter. Don't do it. The frost will take it out, and we're going to hit it then next spring when that horsetail gets up in the winter wheat. That's when we come in with the MCPA, take the top off, and start the process then. Mark saying, okay, Peter, I have these odd pigweeds in 2 different soybean fields. They're patches. One's a half-acre patch, one's a 2-acre patch, and immediately I fire back at Mark and say, Mark, did you send that pigweed away? Did you get it identified? And he said, yes, I have. And it came back inconclusive. Oh my gosh, send it away again, Mark. Mark is out there. Good for you, Mark. You are not letting that pigweed going to seed. You are getting out there. You are spraying it. But you said you did it just a few weeks ago. Man, if you have those patches and you know where they are, you probably can kill those weeds easier if you do it earlier in the season. So try, that would be my suggestion there, but we have to get them identified. By the way, if you are on Twitter, and you saw the most recent post promoting last week's Wheat Pete's Word. And it's an edible bean field in wide rows. And here's this one water hemp plant. And I'm just going, Lindsay, Jay, why did you post that with Wheat Pete's Word? Oh my gosh. And this water hemp plant is a tree. It's massive compared to all those short little edible bean plants. If you are seeing these weeds, you must get out there and get on top of them. All right, move on to wheat. And Mark also saying, Peter, We are out broadcasting our winter wheat now into our standing soybeans. Mark's been dry, 50% normal foliage on those soybeans, and he just says it is so critical, especially with these few leaves. We have to get that wheat seeded. If we're going to broadcast into standing soybeans, we must get it seeded before any leaf drop whatsoever. So that's been a good learning from Mark's success doing that. Remember, though, the issues with treated seed, we've talked about that a number of times, but as Paul would say it again, if you use untreated seed, you can lose the whole crop to bunt diseases, either common bunt or dwarf bunt, so that's the risk. If you use treated seed, then you'll have to be ready to have treated seed in your harvested soybeans and figure out how to get the treated wheat seed out of the harvested soybeans. And if you can't do that, then don't broadcast wheat into soybeans. You've got to wait for the drill. In Mark's case, super late soybeans, he has had good success broadcasting. Do it, but know the risks. All right, Kevin sending me some great data on Nexta, a new plant growth hormone product that is being promoted by Corteva Pioneer. And so, Kevin, he said, mention this in the agronomy section for sure. So what's interesting about this is the shift towards hormones and trying to manage the hormone balance in this case, in the seed, in that whole biological sphere. And so it's cool. I do not have experience with Nexta. They have some data, but plots. Kevin, I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I'm saying plots. Everybody do a plot. Send Wheat Pete the data, and we will learn something yet again. I love the concept. The concept makes sense physiologically, but there's lots that goes on in the soil, that's for sure. Mike from New York saying, Pete, don't have capability. A grower I work with doesn't have capability to put phosphorus on right with the wheat seed. Can we mix MAP with the wheat seed? You've talked about that before, and the answer is absolutely. The watchouts are, if it's dusty MAP, that's a concern, but as long as you keep the seed and the fertilizer blended together dry, and humidity can be an issue with dusty MAP, it's not an issue with well-prilled MAP or with Mez, the quality product, but the dust will attract the humidity, so you really have to keep it dry, but that process works. And by the way, Phil Shaw, when he talked about big wheat acres, said that in his area, a lot of growers are talking about 10 bushel per acre more wheat with seed-placed phosphorus starter. And Phil farms on clay soil. On clay soil, it's almost a given that you are going to see pretty good response to seed-placed phosphorus. You really have to have high soil tests not to see that. So Mike, MAP through the drill works. Keep doing it. No, I don't think you need to buy a liquid kit in that particular situation. Hey, CNMC's put out an awesome top 10 checklist for seeding winter wheat. We'll link to it in the post. I don't need to go through it. And if you have questions, you can ask. But yes, do it right. I mean, gosh, we talked about winter canola, and Phil Needham always quotes his dad as saying, well seeded, well sown is half grown. That was the quote, well sown is half grown. So do the winter wheat right, just like winter canola, and we're off to the races. Okay, let's move on and talk about cover crops. So Dylan with a great question. Oat pea combination, Pete. Instead of the straight oats, you always talk about this 50 pounds of nitrogen. Oat pea combination, how much nitrogen do the peas give to the oat crop, and can I deduct that from the 50 pounds? And so, I mean, I knew that peas didn't transfer much nitrogen to the oat crop, but I couldn't have said the exact number, so who do I reach out to? As usual, my excellent science resource, the guy that always has the data, Dr. Dave Hooker, University of Guelph, Ridgetown campus. And he says, yep, in the literature, when they do N15 studies, you can transfer nitrogen from the peas to the oat crop, and it's about 5 pounds. And I just go, okay, so that isn't going to cut it. So 5 pounds, I think, Dylan, you just still put the 50 pounds on. Here's what's cool about oats and peas in a combination. I talk about the yield drag from oats without nitrogen fertilizer. If you do the oat-pea combination without nitrogen fertilizer, the yield drag to the oats goes away, so you don't lose that 7 bushels of corn yield. But if you put 50 pounds of nitrogen on the oat-pea combination versus not putting 50 pounds of nitrogen on the oat-pea combination, you get an 8% yield increase. In Dave's case, it was 13 bushel more corn from the oat-pea combination with 50 pounds of nitrogen, and you get 50% more biomass. We love cover crops. We want to grow cover crops, but the more we do research into them, if we're going to get bang for the buck, it looks like we have to promote that growth, whether it's straight oats or it's an oat-pea combination. Kevin saying, Pete, we grew triticale, took it off as forage. We planted sudangrass, 2 cuts. And we've taken those 2 cuts. Now we put on manure. We want to no-till corn into that next year. How long do we leave it? So, Kevin, I think it's an awesome question. What I'd really like you to think about doing, if you could, is let that sudangrass grow up and take another cut. Because if that forage isn't there, it's not going to interfere with no-tilling the corn next spring. Sudangrass, very, very stemmy crop. And you just go, oh gosh, you let that grow very much, it gets much of a stem. That is going to be an issue. And Kevin said we could go out with a high-speed disc. High-speed disc it. Yeah, spring high-speed disc, if it's wet underneath a big mat of sudangrass that has been frost killed, I just think that's a challenge. So, if possible, if you get a chance and you get that growth and you can take another cut, and I know nitrates are a concern, you have to watch frost and those things. Otherwise, if you want to no-till corn, I think when it gets to be about a foot high, before you get much stem at all at the base, you just have to go out there and take it out. I just really worry about residue issues next spring. Okay, 2 more quick notes on cover crops. And this is only because nobody has ever said, Pete, the podcast is too long. Too many people say, Pete, just keep talking. No. So 2 quick things. First, Dave, putting manure on red clover. And there were some other questions earlier on. We have red clover. We have a good stand. We're going to put on manure. Do we inject the manure, or do we incorporate the manure, sacrifice the red clover? This was back about the 10th of August. If that's what you're going to do, why did you plant the red clover? Not a chance. So what we do is we delay the manure application. Interesting thing about red clover is that it doesn't really take up much nitrogen out of the manure. I don't understand why. You want to maximize the benefit. Let the red clover crop grow as much as you can. Remember, in red clover, root mass doubles in the month of October. I know, Dave, you're not going to leave it to the end of October because it's too much chance of doing tillage under wet soil conditions. You're going to take it out the 1st of October. That's fine. But take it out the 1st of October and then spread the manure, because I think you're going to get much more benefit from that. Larry saying, okay, Pete, so when it comes to red clover, if I let it grow versus not letting it grow or taking it out, like how much value is the top growth? Well, Larry, realistically, we think the majority of it's in the roots, but top growth is an indication of roots. And when I dig through the literature, for every ton of dry matter accumulation of alfalfa or red clover, the legume crops that are high protein, for every ton of dry matter above ground, that works out to probably a 30-pound nitrogen credit. There's a bunch of things that can happen, but that would be the number. Every ton of dry matter, 30-pound nitrogen credit. And with that, I am once again way too long. That's it. That's all on behalf of the team here at Real Agriculture. This is Wheat Pete with the word for Wednesday, September the 3rd. Hey, next week I will talk about corn standability. I do think it's important. I don't think any harvest will happen before September 10th. Keep the questions coming. Keep the feedback coming, and I'll keep talking. See you next week.
Thank you for downloading this episode of Wheat Pete's Word, brought to you by Syngenta and Reglone Ion. speed up and even out the natural dry down process and preserve your crop quality and yield. Reglone Ion lets you out of the field and into the bin faster with a true canola and pulse desiccant. Talk to your Syngenta rep to learn more.